Hey guys, welcome back to wonderfesg Customs, and today we're going to do a work in progress video of repainting this death head skin tone and skull head for somebody. This I think goes to the Thanos and Death Premium Format statue from Sideshow, if I'm not mistaken, unless it's from another company. But what I wanted to do is show you guys sort of something like what's called modding. I did this back in the day when I first got into airbrushing in the hobby. I think it was around 2006. I went to a class there with Rick Cantu was teaching. And basically modding is what you do is you take your airbrush and you do all these little tiny squiggle lines all over your skin tone, and then you grab another color and you do more squiggle lines over that, and you grab another color and do more squiggle lines like that. So you keep doing it till you build up a really cool like alien, zombie, a predator type of texture on skin. I personally am not a fan of it for two reasons. One, I'll be honest, is it's very tedious and boring to me. Second, it never really feels comic book looking. I know some people have done it with their comic book statues, which is fine. Personal preference, I'm not a fan of it. So I think I'm going to try a little bit on this item, but not too much. Only because it's going to be very, very difficult to do any kind of squiggle lines in all these little crevices. If it was something where I can work on the item and then you put the hood on afterwards, it would be good. But this way I might not. So maybe what I'll do is maybe I'll do more squiggle lines around the eyes, you know, maybe kind of like around the eyes, a little bit around the cheeks and stuff, and then the other parts are kind of blended. We'll see how it looks. It's going to be a little bit tricky, but, you know, I have free reign to kind of do what I want with this and just kind of make it look a little bit more like death-like. So we'll go from there. And one other thing too is this finger was broken and glued on. That's always a nightmare for someone like me to repair. Whenever something breaks and then you use super glue to glue it back on and then try to fix it, it's just really tough. So what I'm doing with this one is I dremeled out all the meat there. I'm going to fill in with some Aves and a little bit of a rye, get this all patched up and sanded down because there is a lot of glue residue around here. So I got to kind of clean all this up, and then I can start working on the skin tone. So the skin tone, you know, I might even have to do paintbrush work too. I might have to go in there with a little bit of paintbrush and do squiggle lines and blend it back out. But I think for right now, what I'll do is real quick, I'll just kind of patch up the finger, let that sit, and then I can redo this skull head. We're just going to kind of bring this out, make it a little bit more realistic than kind of toyish the way the factory did. We'll see if we can add a little bit more life to it. But this right here, I just realized I have to be careful because these eyes light up. So what I'll have to do is put some, silly putty around the eye so this way we don't lose any of that. I got to sand down this chin because we got a nice little nick there. But we'll see how we can bring this out and make it a little bit, maybe more, a little bit sexier, a little bit more veiny, I guess you can say, in some areas, and just have some fun with it. So let's get all prepped up. We'll come back. We'll start working on it. Okay, so what I did is I did my masking of silly putty all around the skull. I hit it with some clear primer from Duplicolor, and I'm going to do a little bit of a light base coat of Garage Kit's H Bone on it, and then from there do some washes and some dry brushing of Transparency Leather, Payne's Gray, and White. So it's pretty straightforward to kind of get in there, and then when I want to darken up the eyes and in the nose and stuff, I'll hit it with some black paint, you know, kind of get into those areas there. And that's pretty much straightforward for the skull, so we're just going to pretty much fly through that right now. Alright, so what I did is I did my clear coat, got everything on the body parts. I didn't really go over spraying it, just let a little blue show from the original paint. Really don't have to overthink it. So this is my HPB Plus airbrush. I have a really low PSI, and we're going to be doing transparencies. Like I said, I haven't done this in ages, but we should work pretty well. So basically what you do is you get the piece, and you kind of just do some kind of modding type stuff like this. Now my PSI might be a little bit overboard, but that's okay. I don't really care. I'm just kind of give like a veining look to it. Now this is a little bit of Transparency Payne's Gray mixed with some Ocean Blue Transparency from Garage Kits. And like I said, I'm not going to be able to get in certain areas. And I don't overthink it. I know some people sit there and they try to do the same thing over and over. I just kind of run with it. And that's just kind of one layer. Like right now, that's just kind of one layer. And then what you do is you get your hand pieces and you kind of do the same thing. Now the only problem is sometimes your tip on the airbrush might dry, so you got to kind of... So the idea is I'm going to keep doing this. Now I know some people who mod, they got really specific looks to it. You know, they're like pros with the stuff, and they can sit there and they do it. But like I said, this is tedious to me. But I just want to try something I haven't tried in ages. So you see, that's kind of just like one way of doing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of do this across the board on them. And then what I do is I pick up the next color, which might be like a red. Then I might pick up another color, which might be green. And then what I might do is I might use some varnish and kind of like tone it down. And then keep going that way. Like, I don't really have a formula since I really don't do this much. But it's just creating squiggly lines and veins and just kind of have fun with it. Don't overthink it. I guess you could say this is almost like Predator in a way, because I know some guys who paint up Predators, they sort of do this. They'll have this sort of kind of like sandstone base, and they kind of just do all these little squiggly lines and take it down. But we're gonna kind of blue her up at the end with some transparencies mixed in with some varnish and give her that blue tint. But we're not gonna go overboard with the blue, sort of like she already had. Like I said, this stuff sort of starts to dry up the airbrush tip a little bit. See, it's easier to do this piece here because I don't have all those other stuff masked off, so it's a little bit easier to kind of get in there. But that's the nature of repainting. So you kind of start creating this weird little textures and veins. So next step is I grab another color, which is probably going to be red. I might even just mix it into this. We might as well. I mean, kind of dump out whatever in there. Get some transparent true red. See how that's coming out of the airbrush. Pretty thick. Now what I'm also doing is your airbrush, this little piece back here, by turning it all the way forward, it doesn't let you pull the trigger back. So letting it turn a little bit, you get a little bit of that pull back on your brush so you don't accidentally overspray. But that's also what causes sort of the drying of the tip because you're not really getting a lot of it out. So let's see, go here and the red's a little heavy, but that doesn't really matter because it'll all get toned down. I'll probably do some, so you can start to see we're creating some sort of like a veiny texture and a little bit squiggly lines. You can even go back in with whites. You can kind of go back in with any other colors you want. If you want to stick to specific colors, you can. Alright, so we're going to keep doing that. I'll probably pull out maybe like a white next, maybe kind of water down some white. Maybe go back in with a little bit of green. And just keep going and going and going until I get it to kind of where I want it. And then maybe what we'll do is we'll do some like not baby powder, basically makeup, women's makeup. Kind of get in there with some areas, shade up some areas. And then like at the very end, I'm going to use some varnish with some blue and kind of give it like a little bit more of a thicker skin tone. And do maybe a couple layers of varnish just to kind of give it like a little bit of a skin type of a coating, I guess you could say. But we'll see how it evolves. I might change it up as I go. I'm not really overthinking this one, but I really want to try to kind of create something a little bit cool for this paint up. Alright, so you can see how I'm starting to build up that little texture. It's way too much, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a layer now of matte varnish with a tiny drop of white paint in it to kind of see how it maybe it takes it down a little bit. We want the texture there, but we don't want it to be overkill. So what happens is you start to create that, you know, sort of that little bit of a zombie-like type skin. So I'm going to do a couple more layers. I'll probably do another, maybe a drop of white paint into this, kind of take this down a little bit more. And just keep going. And then at the end, I think what we'll do is we'll take this varnish and we'll put like a couple drops of ocean blue into it, which is some transparency ocean blue. And maybe give a little bit more of that blue tint. Just kind of keep playing with it until I get it to where I want it to be. Alright, so this is where I'm at. Hopefully you can see pretty well on the camera. So just doing all those squiggle lines and then building up layers and squiggle lines and building up layers, you start to get like a skin tone that's kind of like deadish, I guess you could say. Now just because she's Mistress Death doesn't mean we have to make her look dead. We can kind of spruce her up a little bit, make her look good. So we'll throw some blush on her. Why not? I'm going to hit this again with some transparency blue varnish again, but what we'll do is we'll get in a little bit areas around here, darken up some eyeshadow. But yeah, this kind of was a lot of fun to work on. Try something a little bit different, haven't done in ages. And the good thing about it is you could kind of make little mistakes with the squiggle lines, and it probably would work out to your benefit, you know. And then you can kind of hit in some other areas. And because she's death, you can use some black, you know, you can do a little bit of black in there, darken up this whole area, and really make things pop a little bit more. Definitely have to seal it though after doing this, of course. Now, like I said, the thing that sucks is you can't really get in all these areas. So you gotta kind of fudge your colors a little bit. There's nothing really I can do about that. I'm not really sure yet with the lips. I think it's just going to be like a transparency on the lips. We don't really want to go too crazy with that. As long as you're doing layers and you're kind of just playing with it, it should work out pretty well. Now you can go in with some of this powder in the hands too if you need to get in areas, but it's looking a little bit dead, but you know, trying to make her a little bit sexy too. Why not, you know? So we'll hit some other areas with the blush. You know, kind of throw some more up here. Give it a little bit of life. It's coming together pretty well. So it looks like this head was actually glued in because this is the light switch. And I did actually mask off the eyes because we didn't want to ruin those eyes. So I'll probably have to go back in a little bit and fix that up anyway. Not really thinking too much where the powder is going, just kind of letting it go. Now if you want to lighten any of it up, you can grab some of the powder and you can kind of do a little bit of the skin tone in certain areas. But all those little squiggles are really showing through, which is good. Now the only problem with something like this, if you nick it and you got to repair it, that's a pain. Of course. Yeah, looking not bad. So I might get in here a little bit more with some eyeshadow with the airbrush. Darken it up, maybe a little bit more blacker. Really kind of darken that up. Get that really, you know, the eyes so this way when they glow, they glow. But other than that, another seal with a little bit of a blue tint. I think it'll come together. Okay, so off camera I did the fingernails, I did any touch-ups I needed to do, clean some edges, and I did the lipstick and also the eyebrows. So you can pretty much see how that is looking right now. It's just easier to do it off camera than to sit there. I mean, it's just lipstick, just take your time and do it. I was going to do like more of a natural look, but then I looked at pictures and stuff. It's better to kind of make her a little bit darker and just go with the whole outfit. So all I have to do left is the skull up front. I'm going to let this kind of cure up for the night. And then I'll do this skull tomorrow to sort of match this one over here, or try a little different something to it. But we still got that blue tint on the skin, and we also have you know, a little bit more texture and skin tone to her now, which is kind of cool. So what I'll do is I'll get this skull done, and then what we'll do is we'll finish up and we'll go into the photo studio and look at it in better lighting. Okay, so we are all finished up. Off camera I did a little bit more tweaking. I still got maybe one or two left tweaks to do that I can see now that we put it into the photo studio. Just a couple areas here and there I got to kind of touch up. But other than that, we're pretty much done. I sent it to the client. He likes it a lot. It's something a little bit different than, you know, the typical you know, superhero type of paint-ups I do. I'm not really a fan of modding only because it's tedious. I love the way it looks and I love the effects you can get, but I'm not really a fan of it on superhero type kits. maybe if it's someone like Toad from X-Men, that would be kind of like a cool skin tone. Maybe like Bizarro for Superman, that'll be kind of a cool skin tone. Stuff like that for specific characters, I think it works well. But for like every single character, no, it's kind of not my thing. But for monsters, zombies, predators, aliens, I mean, this stuff looks awesome on those types of statues though. So if that's the type of stuff you're into, go for modding, learn it, create like a muscle memory with your airbrush and modding, because the guys who do this all the time, they're doing it so much that literally they just get the airbrush and they just start doing squiggly lines and they're not even thinking about it. Me, since I don't do it very often, I'm thinking about every little squiggly line I'm doing, so it's like one of those things you gotta just keep doing and doing to the point where you zone out and you just start doing squiggly lines. Now the other thing too is, for this head and hands, it works out pretty good because it's a small project. But now imagine doing a full size, you know, 1/6, 1/4, 1/5 predator, alien, monster, or even a superhero type character, and there's a lot of skin showing. That's a lot of squiggly lines, and that's a lot of modding. So, you know, the effect is awesome, but it's very time consuming and tedious. So it's just kind of the downside of getting something really cool. But with that being said, you can kind of see how I did mine after I haven't done this in years, but it comes out pretty good. You get some really cool effects, and you know, it kind of looks veiny, a little bit of deadish skin. You know, it just kind of makes things pop out a little bit more, which is pretty cool. Now, like I said, for her face, once we got all that done, just because she's dead doesn't mean we have to just have pure squiggly lines. Add a little blush on her cheeks, add a little bit of eyeshadow, make her look a little sexy even though she's dead, and I think it works out pretty good. Something a little bit my take on it, you know, how I kind of would do death paint up, and it's pretty cool. Now for the skull, just pretty much, you know, I just brought that out a little bit more because the factory paint was just one white with a very light wash of black paint. So this got some bone, Garage Kit's bone paint in there with some white highlights and some shadows and washes. But so let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you like modding? Do you think it's pretty good for death? Would you like to see it more on superhero type stuff, or you think it's more just you know, save for the monster, zombies, and predator type stuff? But I think down the line, if I ever come across, you know, a specific character again, and maybe there's not a lot of skin tone, maybe I could go back to modding and try it out again. Maybe a couple other projects that I have down the pipeline, I could try it out a little bit more and see how it works out. But like I said, it's just tedious. You know, if you guys are getting into the hobby and you want to try some new type of paint up, there you go. I don't have enough experience to do a really great in-depth tutorial on it, only because, you know, it's just squiggly lines. Squiggly, 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 layering it, and squiggly, and layering it. And that's pretty much all there is to it. But with her, we went more just blues, whites, reds, purples, and a little bit of Payne's gray. But if you go more zombie type stuff, you want to throw a little bit of oranges and greens and maybe yellows to give more of that crazy coloring looking. But this one, she's kind of more of that bluish, whitish skin tone with all the modding involved. But there you go. So let me know what you guys think. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you think you want to see more of this down the line, or you think it's just kind of takes away from the sculpt? You know, it's all personal preference, you know, in the hobby. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think, and we'll be back with some more videos.